Tom lived on the edge of a small colony world that circled a quiet star. His life was simple, filled with long hours repairing ships and machines for anyone who came to his workshop. The colony was not large. It had farms, storage towers, and a few landing pads for traders who passed through. Most people came and went, but Tom stayed. He liked fixing things. Machines made sense to him. They broke and he fixed them. That was his world. That night, Tom was alone in his workshop. He had an old transport ship half opened, its engine laid bare like the heart of a patient waiting for care. The air smelled of oil and metal. The only sounds were the hum of his tools and the occasional buzz of insects outside. Then the sky tore open. At first, Tom thought it was a meteor. A bright streak of light burned through the darkness, trailing smoke as it cut across the stars. But this was different. The object was not falling in a straight path. It twisted, spun, and left flashes of orange fire behind it. The ground shook faintly when it hit, and a deep boom rolled across the land. Tom dropped his tool. His heart raced as he stepped outside. The crash had landed beyond the tree line in the thick forest that bordered the colony. He stared at the smoke rising in the distance, glowing faintly with fire. For a moment, Tom considered ignoring it. It was none of his business. But something inside pushed him forward. He grabbed a flashlight, strapped on his tool belt, and hurried toward the forest. The woods were dark and quiet. Leaves rustled under his boots as he moved quickly. The beam of his flashlight cut across the trunks and branches, guiding him closer to the smoke. The smell of burning metal grew stronger, mixed with the sharp scent of scorched earth. When he reached the clearing, Tom stopped and caught his breath. The wreckage lay before him. Pieces of twisted metal were scattered like broken wings. Sparks danced in the grass and smoke curled upward in heavy waves. Tom stepped closer, cautious but curious. He had seen ships before, but this one was not like any design he knew. Its frame was smooth, built with strange angles and markings he could not read. The hull still glowed faintly, as if the fire inside had not yet died. Then he heard it. A faint sound. A weak cry. Tom froze. The cry came again, soft and broken, like someone calling for help. He moved quickly, pushing aside a piece of metal panel. Behind it, half hidden by the wreck, was a figure. It was a girl, or at least she looked like one. Her skin was pale, almost white, with faint blue patterns running across her arms. Her hair was silver, short and tangled from the crash. Her eyes, barely open, glimmered with a light that was not human. She wore a torn suit that looked like a second skin, made of fabric Tom could not name. She tried to lift herself, but her body gave out. She collapsed back against the wreckage, breathing in shallow gasps. Tom's mind raced. This was not a human. She was an alien, and she was hurt. He had never seen one before. The colony had stories, of course. Traders sometimes spoke of other races in the galaxy, but humans rarely saw them. And now, here one was, right in front of him. He knelt beside her. "Hey, can you hear me?" His voice was gentle, but he was not sure if she would understand. Her lips moved. A faint sound came out, but the words were broken. She had a small device around her neck, cracked and sparking. It seemed to be a translator, but it was damaged. Still, her eyes locked onto his. She was afraid. That fear was clear, no matter the species. Tom hesitated. He could run back, tell the colony, and let others handle this. But he knew what would happen. The colony leaders would see her as a threat. They would treat her like a danger, not like a living being who needed help. Tom made his choice. He lifted her carefully, cradling her weight against his chest. She was light, weaker than she looked, and her breathing was shallow. As he carried her away from the wreck, her hand clutched faintly at his shirt, as if she feared he would let go. The walk back to his workshop felt longer than ever. Every sound in the forest made him tense. He worried that others had seen the crash. He worried that whatever had brought her down might still be out there. But he kept going, step after step, until the lights of his workshop came into view. Inside, he laid her gently on a workbench cleared of tools. She stirred, her silver eyes opening slightly. For a moment, she seemed ready to panic, but Tom raised a hand. "You're safe here," he said. He spoke slowly, hoping his tone would carry meaning even if the words did not. Her gaze softened, though she still looked weak and in pain. Tom moved quickly. He was not a doctor, but he had fixed enough machines to understand the basics of repair. He fetched bandages, water, and simple medical supplies he kept for emergencies. Her wounds were strange, the blood a faint blue tint instead of red, but the cuts were still cuts and burns were still burns. He cleaned and wrapped them carefully. While working, he studied her face. She was not frightening. She looked young, not much older than him. Her features were sharp but delicate, her eyes brighter than any he had ever seen. When he finished, she whispered something again. The translator on her neck flickered, spitting out broken words. He caught only a few. "Thank, safe, help." Tom nodded. "You're welcome." She closed her eyes, exhaustion pulling her into sleep. Tom sat back, exhaling slowly. His hands trembled now that the work was done. He stared at her, lying there in his workshop, and the weight of what he had done sank in. He had saved her. He had brought an alien into his home. If anyone in the colony found out, there would be questions he could not answer. There would be fear, suspicion, maybe even anger. But as he looked at her resting form, he knew he would not change his choice. He had seen fear in her eyes, the same fear any person would have. She was not a threat to him. She was someone who needed help. Outside, the night sky was quiet again. The wreck still smoldered in the forest, hidden in the dark. But inside the workshop, a different fire had been lit. A bond had begun, fragile and uncertain, but real. Tom leaned back in his chair, eyes heavy with fatigue, but he stayed awake, keeping watch. He did not know who she was, where she had come from, or why she had fallen from the sky. But he knew one thing. His life would never be the same again. Morning light spread across the colony as Tom stood outside his workshop, staring toward the forest where smoke still rose faintly from the wreck. His thoughts were heavy. Inside, the alien girl rested on his workbench, still weak but alive. He could not forget the way her silver eyes had looked at him before she closed them. Fear and hope both mixed together. Tom rubbed his hands against his trousers, unsure of what to do next. If the colony leaders discovered her, they would see her as a problem. They would lock her away, maybe worse. That thought unsettled him. He had helped her. He had chosen to save her. He was not about to hand her over like broken scrap metal. When he stepped back into the workshop, the girl was stirring. She pushed herself up weakly, her body trembling with the effort. Her gaze scanned the room until it found him, and she relaxed slightly. Her lips moved, and the cracked translator around her neck flickered again. "Where?" "Here, safe?" the device said in a voice that shifted in tone as if it was trying to find the right pitch. Tom nodded. "You are safe. This is my workshop. No one else knows you are here." The girl blinked slowly, then tried to sit up straighter. She placed her hand on her chest and said something in her own language. The translator hissed and sparked, then spoke in broken words. "Lyra, my name." "Lyra," Tom repeated. He pointed to himself. "Tom." Her lips curved faintly, the closest she could manage to a smile in her weak state. She repeated his name carefully. "Tom." Something eased inside him when he heard it. For the first time, she did not feel like a stranger. She was Lyra now, not just an alien pulled from wreckage. Tom fetched a bowl of water and held it near her. She hesitated, then drank carefully, the translator device picking up her quiet sounds and translating fragments like thanks and need. Her hands shook, but determination shone in her eyes. "You are hurt," Tom said softly. "You need rest." She tilted her head, listening. Then she reached for the side of her suit, pressing a button. A small compartment opened, revealing a glowing shard of crystal no larger than his thumb. She held it with trembling hands, trying to activate it, but the light flickered weakly. Tom leaned closer. "What is that?" The translator gave a broken answer. "Core, ship, memory." He realized it must be part of her craft, something vital. He wanted to ask more, but her strength faded and she slumped back against the workbench. He gently set the shard aside and adjusted the bandages on her arms. Hours passed. Tom worked on small repairs around the workshop, keeping his mind busy, but his thoughts always returned to her. He wondered who she was, what world she came from, and why her ship had fallen. He also wondered if others were looking for her. By evening, she had gained enough strength to speak more. Her words were still broken through the damaged translator, but she tried. "Tom, why help me?" she asked slowly. He paused, unsure of how to answer. "Because you needed it. That is all." Her silver eyes searched his face as if trying to understand more than the words. She nodded faintly, though he could tell she was not fully satisfied with the answer. The next day, Tom returned to the crash site. He left Lyra resting in the workshop with water and a blanket, promising to return quickly. The forest smelled of burned metal, and the wreckage still lay scattered. He examined the pieces, careful not to be seen. If anyone else found this, it would raise questions. He gathered what parts he could carry and returned. Among them were fragments of the same material as the crystal shard. When he showed them to Lyra, her eyes lit up with urgency. "Need. Repair," the translator sputtered. Tom studied the fragments. Some looked like parts of a power unit. He realized she wanted him to help restore her device. It was more complicated than any machine he had worked on before, but he agreed. For several days, Tom worked beside her. He handled tools and wires while she guided him with gestures and broken words. Slowly, he learned to read her expressions, the small tilt of her head or the way her eyes brightened when he did something right. During those days, they spoke more. Her language came through in pieces, but the translator allowed enough for basic conversation. He learned that she came from a distant system, chased by enemies she called raiders. She had been fleeing when her ship was struck. Tom frowned at the mention of raiders. "Are they coming here?" Lyra's gaze darkened. She nodded slowly. "Search, not stop." That worried him more than anything. He had saved her, but if dangerous enemies followed, the colony could be at risk. Still, he could not abandon her now. One evening, as he tightened the frame around her device, he noticed her watching him closely. "What is it?" he asked. The translator paused, then spoke softly. "You trust me, why?" Tom set down his tool and thought. "Because you are not my enemy. Because you needed help and I could give it." She blinked, her silver eyes reflecting the lamplight. "On my world, not all would help." "On mine, not all would either," Tom admitted. "But I did." For the first time, her smile was clear. Small, fragile, but true. The next morning, Tom tested the repaired device. Sparks flared and then the crystal glowed steady. Lyra gasped, clutching it with relief. She whispered in her own tongue, the translator too slow to keep up. Finally it spoke. "Memory safe." "Thank you." Tom leaned against the bench, wiping sweat from his brow. "Good. Now you can rest easy." But peace did not last. That night, Tom picked up strange signals on his old radar screen. The patterns were not from human ships. They were sharp, fast-moving, circling near the colony's edge. His stomach turned cold. He glanced at Lyra, who was asleep, the repaired device clutched in her hand like a lifeline. He knew then that her words were true. The raiders were out there searching, and sooner or later they would find her. Tom sat quietly, staring at the blinking signals on his screen. He felt the weight of the choice pressing harder on him. Keeping her hidden meant danger for him and possibly the entire colony. But giving her up meant betraying the trust she had placed in him. As the night deepened, he whispered to himself, "I will protect her." The words sounded firm, even if his heart still raced with fear. The colony was calm on the surface, but Tom felt the weight of unease pressing against him. His workshop buzzed with the sounds of tools and machines, yet his eyes kept drifting toward the old radar screen on the wall. The strange signals had appeared again that morning, faint blips circling just beyond the colony's safe zone. They were not traders, not miners, and not any ship he recognized. Tom's stomach tightened. Lyra had warned him. Raiders. They were searching, and they were getting closer. Inside the workshop, Lyra sat on the workbench with the crystal device in her hands. Her strength had improved over the last few days. Her wounds were healing, and her voice, though still filtered through the cracked translator, carried more certainty. She noticed Tom staring at the radar. "They come," she said quietly. Tom turned to her. "How do you know?" Her silver eyes narrowed. "They always come. They do not leave prey alive. They will search until they find me. The words sent a chill through him. He had lived his life fixing machines, avoiding trouble, staying small in a big galaxy. But now trouble had walked straight into his workshop in the form of an alien girl who trusted him. Tom rubbed his hands together, trying to calm himself. If they come here, the colony will be in danger. People will panic. They won't know what to do. Lyra looked at him with steady eyes. Then we must not let them find me. Tom thought about her words. She was right, but hiding her was not enough. If the raiders were skilled enough to strike her ship in deep space, they would not be fooled by silence or shadows. They would come with force and the colony would suffer. He sat beside her on the bench. I made a choice when I saved you, he said slowly, and I won't take it back. But now I have to make another choice. Do I hand you over to save the colony, or do I fight to protect you even if it puts us all in danger? Her gaze softened. You would give me away? The question cut into him. He shook his head quickly. No, I couldn't, not after everything. But I had to say it out loud to be sure. I won't let them take you, not while I can stand. Her hand trembled as she reached for his arm, touching it lightly. You are different from them, she whispered. Tom felt the warmth of her touch, fragile but real. In that moment, his fear did not vanish, but it hardened into resolve. That evening, he prepared. He cleaned his tools, checked his machines, and went through the workshop as though he were planning for war. He had no army, no weapons worth mentioning, only his mind and his hands. But machines could be clever if built with care. He could use traps, alarms, hidden defenses. Lyra watched him work, her silver eyes following every movement. Finally, she rose and stood beside him. I help, she said. Tom frowned. You should rest. She shook her head firmly. I fight too. Together they worked through the night. Lyra showed him how to adapt her alien technology into his machines. Her knowledge was advanced, but her hands were still weak, so she guided while Tom built. They turned scrap metal into shields, old engines into makeshift energy bursts, and small drones into scouts that could fly above the trees. At one point, Tom stopped and looked at her. How do you know so much about fighting? Her eyes darkened. Because my people have been hunted for a long time. We run, we hide, and we learn how to survive. I was trained to use what I have, to build and to resist. He nodded, understanding more about her past without needing every detail. She was not just a lost traveler. She was part of something larger, something chased across the stars. Days passed, each one carrying more tension. The signals on the radar grew closer, sharper. Tom barely slept, but he never slowed down. Lyra pushed herself as well, her translator sparking each time she spoke too long. But her determination never faltered. One night, as Tom adjusted the wiring of a trap, Lyra sat nearby with the glowing crystal device in her hands. She spoke softly, the translator giving her voice a broken rhythm. You could still leave me outside the colony. They would find me. You would be safe. Tom dropped his tool and looked at her sharply. Safe watching you get taken? Knowing I abandoned someone who trusted me, that's not safety. That's something else. And I won't live with it. Her silver eyes filled with light as though his words had unlocked something inside her. Why do you care so much? He hesitated. He could not explain it in simple terms. It was not about logic, not about gain. It was about the moment he saw her broken in the wreck, the fear in her eyes, and the simple truth that he could not walk away. I just do, he said finally. She studied him for a long moment, then smiled faintly. Humans and strange. That made him laugh quietly. Yeah, strange enough to cause trouble. The next morning, the first shadow appeared in the sky. A dark shape cut across the clouds, moving too fast for any human craft. Tom and Lyra stood outside the workshop, staring upward. They found us, she said, her voice tight. Tom clenched his fists. His traps were ready, his machines waiting, but his heart pounded harder than any hammer. He had never fought in his life. But now he would. The colony around them went about its day, unaware of the danger. Farmers tended fields. Children played near the landing pads, and traders shouted prices at stalls. They did not see the threat above. Only Tom and Lyra knew. Back inside, Tom checked everything one last time. Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder. We fight together. He met her eyes. Together. That night, more signals appeared. Dozens of blips filled the radar screen. The raiders were gathering, circling, waiting for the right moment. Tom sat in silence, staring at the screen. Fear pressed hard against him, but so did determination. He thought of the colony, of the people who had no idea what was coming. He thought of Lyra, who had trusted him when she had no reason to. He whispered to himself, steady and clear, "We are ready." Lyra stood beside him, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Together they waited for the shadows to fall. The sky darkened early that evening, not from clouds, but from shadows moving far above the colony. Tom stood at the edge of his workshop, watching the shapes shift and circle. He had never felt fear like this before, yet it did not paralyze him. Every signal, every movement reminded him of the promise he had made to Lyra. He would protect her. No one else would. Lyra stood beside him, her silver eyes glowing faintly as she held the crystal device close to her chest. Her strength had returned, and now she was ready. She no longer seemed fragile. She moved with precision and awareness, like a predator who had learned to survive by instinct. "They will come soon," she said. Tom nodded. "Then we fight." They had spent days preparing. Traps were hidden among the trees. Small drones hovered silently above, and makeshift defenses surrounded the workshop. Tom had reinforced the walls with scrap metal and energy emitters he had cobbled together. It was not much, but it would slow anyone down. Lyra had guided him in using alien technology to enhance his defenses, combining human tools with her advanced knowledge. The first strike came quietly. A shadow swept over the workshop, and a sudden pulse of energy hit the ground near the entrance. Sparks flew, and Tom dived behind a workbench as debris scattered around him. "They know we are here," he shouted. Lyra sprang into action. She activated the crystal device, which emitted a bright pulse of light. The energy struck the approaching raiders, forcing them back. Their ships hovered closer, trying to find an opening, but the light confused their sensors. Tom scrambled to activate another trap. A set of old engines he had modified roared to life, sending smoke and noise into the clearing. The raiders paused, their ships dipping as they tried to adjust. "We can do this," Lyra said, her voice steady. "Follow my lead." Together they moved like a single unit. Tom triggered machines and traps with precise timing, while Lyra used bursts of energy from her crystal device to strike at anyone who tried to land. Sparks flew, metal groaned, and the air was filled with the sharp smell of burning circuits. Despite the chaos, Tom noticed something. Lyra was not just fighting. She was protecting him. Every time a beam or strike came near, she moved in front, using her own strength to shield him. He had always assumed he was the protector, but now he realized she was equal in courage. The raiders' ships descended closer to the workshop, releasing small scouts that skittered across the ground like spiders. Tom activated a trap, sending a wave of energy that threw several scouts into the air. Lyra followed, using the crystal device to block a blast that might have struck him. "This is not just a fight," she said. "It is survival." Tom nodded, adrenaline sharpening his senses. He realized the danger was greater than he had imagined. These were not ordinary enemies. They were determined, skilled, and ruthless. But they had not counted on human determination. They had not counted on Tom. They had not counted on Lyra. A small group of raiders landed near the workshop. Their suits were dark and their weapons glowed with energy. Tom gripped a metal rod, ready to defend himself, while Lyra moved closer to intercept. "You take the left," she said, pointing at the approaching group. "I handle the rest." Tom hesitated for a moment. He had no real experience in combat, but he trusted her. He moved to follow her instructions, using the traps he had prepared to slow the raiders. The ground shook as one trap erupted, sending several attackers flying. Lyra moved with fluid precision. She struck out with the energy pulses, knocking raiders off their feet. Sparks danced across her arms, and the light from her crystal device lit up the clearing like a small sun. Tom realized something extraordinary. He was witnessing the combination of human ingenuity and alien technology. Alone, either might have struggled, but together, they were formidable. One raider managed to break through a trap and aimed a weapon at Tom. Before he could react, Lyra leaped forward, placing herself between him and the attacker. A pulse of energy surged from the crystal, knocking the raider back with enough force to stop the attack. Tom's heart raced. He had expected to protect her. He had not expected her to save him in the same way. The battle continued for what felt like hours. The raiders adapted quickly, trying different strategies, but Tom and Lyra were always one step ahead. Traps, energy pulses, and careful coordination kept the enemies at bay. Every move was calculated, every response measured. Finally, the raiders began to retreat. Their ships rose into the sky, leaving trails of smoke behind. Tom and Lyra stood in the clearing, breathing heavily, surrounded by scorched earth and broken machinery. Tom looked at her, still glowing faintly from the crystal device. You saved me." She shook her head, a small smile forming. "We saved each other." He swallowed hard, realizing the truth of her words. They had fought side by side, each protecting the other. Trust had become action, and action had become survival. The night returned to quiet, the shadows disappearing from the sky. Tom looked around at the workshop, at the damage, and at the machines that had served them so well. He knew they would need to repair everything, but at this moment there was time to breathe. Lyra stepped closer. "Why, help me," she asked, her voice soft now. Tom paused. The question had been asked before, but now it felt different. He had risked his life, faced enemies, and relied on her strength as much as she relied on his. Words felt small compared to the truth of what they had done together. I don't know," he said finally. "I just knew I had to. That was enough." Her silver eyes glimmered, reflecting the faint light of the damaged workshop. "Humans, strange," she whispered again. Tom laughed quietly, exhaustion and relief mingling in his chest. "Strange, yes. But strong when it matters most." The battle had changed something between them. It was no longer just about hiding and surviving. It was about trust, understanding, and the bond that had formed in the fires of conflict. As dawn approached, Tom and Lyra sat on the edge of the workshop, watching the sun rise over the colony. The smoke from the raiders' retreat still lingered, but the world was calm again. For now, Tom realized that the days ahead would be filled with challenges. The raiders could return and more enemies might come. But he also realized something important. Humans had something unique. They could fight not just for survival, but for someone else. They could risk everything for trust and care. Lyra looked at him, her expression serious. "We will fight again if needed," Tom nodded. "And we will. Together." For the first time, both of them felt the weight of what they had survived. They had faced a threat far beyond anything either had imagined, and they had come through not by strength alone, but by courage, ingenuity, and the bond that had formed between a human and an alien. The sun rose higher, casting light on the battered workshop and the land around it. The battle was over, but the journey was far from finished. Tom knew that more challenges would come. More questions would arise. But he also knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. And in that moment, he understood why he had saved her in the first place. The battle had ended, leaving the workshop battered but standing. The air was filled with the smell of scorched metal and burned circuits. Tom leaned against the doorway, staring at the rising sun. Shadows stretched across the ground, but the danger from the raiders had passed, at least for now. Lyra sat on the edge of the workbench, holding the crystal device close. The glow from it had dimmed after the battle, but it still pulsed faintly, a reminder of her alien power and the strength she had shown. Her silver eyes scanned the workshop, taking in the damage, the scorched machines, and the traps that had helped them survive. Tom approached her slowly, careful not to disturb her. "We made it," he said softly. She nodded, but her expression was thoughtful. "Yes, for now." He sat beside her, feeling the weight of exhaustion pressing on him. The battle had tested every skill he had, and some he did not know he possessed. He had feared for his life and hers. He had felt helpless at times, but together they had managed. And now in the calm after the storm, he realized how much had changed. Lyra turned to him, her eyes serious. "You saved me. You fought for me." Tom hesitated. "I did what I had to." "You were in danger." Her gaze softened, but she continued. "But why? You could have stayed safe. You could have let me face them alone. You chose otherwise." Tom did not answer immediately. He had never considered it deeply before. He had acted without thinking of reward or recognition. He had acted because it was right, because someone needed help and he could give it. But to explain it in words felt impossible. Lyra tilted her head, studying him carefully. "Why help someone you do not know?" Tom looked down at his hands. He wanted to give her a simple answer, but there was none. I just did. That is all I can say." Her eyes glimmered with understanding and curiosity at the same time. "Humans, strange. You do not need reason. Yet you act," he laughed quietly. "Maybe that is what makes us human." For a long moment they sat in silence. The workshop was quiet, the only sounds the hum of damaged machines and the faint pulse of the crystal device. Outside, the colony had begun its day, unaware of how close danger had come. Lyra spoke again, her voice quieter now. You risk life for another. Not your kin, not your people, just me. Tom looked at her, feeling the weight of her words. Yes, because you were in danger. Because I could help. That was enough. Her gaze softened, a faint smile forming on her lips. I cannot understand fully, but I see. Humans, strange, but strong, Tom nodded. He felt a deep connection to her, one built through trust, danger, and shared struggle. They had faced the unknown together. They had relied on each other in moments of fear. And now, after surviving, they had learned something profound about one another. The morning light grew stronger, filling the workshop with warmth. Tom stood and moved to the workbench, examining the damage. Some traps had broken, some machines needed repair, but the workshop was still functional. He began organizing his tools and planning repairs, but Lyra's voice called him back. Tom, she said, her tone hesitant. He turned to her. Yes? She shifted, holding the crystal device tightly. I must ask. Tom raised an eyebrow. Ask what? Her silver eyes met his, wide and searching. Why? You risk life. For me? The question struck him harder than any weapon the raiders had used. He froze, unsure how to answer. He had not expected this. He had not thought anyone would ask such a question so directly. He opened his mouth, but words failed him. He searched for an explanation, a reason that would satisfy her curiosity, but there was none. It was not about strategy or reward or obligation. It was something deeper, something he had always known but never named. He began, then stopped. He shook his head, unable to finish. Lyra's gaze did not waver. She waited patiently, as though she understood that some answers could not be spoken. Finally, Tom took a deep breath. I cannot explain fully, I just could not let you face them alone. I did what I had to. That is all. She tilted her head slightly, considering his words. Then a small, genuine smile spread across her face. I see. Humans are strong, in ways I never knew. Tom felt a warmth inside him he had not expected. The bond between them, forged in fear and fire, had deepened. It was not just survival now. It was trust, understanding, and respect. They spent the rest of the day repairing the workshop together. Lyra helped where she could, though her strength was not fully human. She guided him with advice and knowledge, her alien perspective opening new ways of thinking about machines and energy. As the afternoon sun dipped toward the horizon, Tom realized something important. Humans had a strength that was not measured by weapons or technology. It was measured by courage, by the willingness to act for another without expecting anything in return. That was why he had saved her. That was why he had fought beside her. That was why he could not answer her question in simple words. By evening, the workshop was in better condition. The traps were repaired, machines were humming again, and the small drones hovered silently. They had survived, and they had strengthened their defenses. Lyra placed the crystal device on the workbench, its faint glow pulsing like a heartbeat. She looked at Tom again, her silver eyes reflecting gratitude and something more. Curiosity, wonder, and perhaps trust that ran deeper than she could articulate. I think I understand a little now, she said slowly. Humans are strange, but you have heart. You act without reason, yet you protect. Tom smiled, exhaustion in his voice. I guess that is the best answer I can give. They stood together, side by side, looking out at the colony. The people went about their lives, unaware of the danger they had faced. But Tom and Lyra had seen it. They had survived it. And they had learned from it. The night fell, stars appearing in the sky above. Lyra tilted her head, looking at the heavens. My people would not believe one human can be so strong? Tom offered. She nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. Yes, strong. Tom looked at her, feeling the bond between them more clearly than ever. Strength is not always about fighting or machines. Sometimes it is about what you do for others, what you risk, what you believe is right. Lyra's eyes glimmered in the dim light. Then, you are human in the best way. Tom chuckled softly. I hope so. For the first time since her arrival, there was no immediate danger. The raiders had retreated. The colony remained unaware, and the workshop, though battered, was still standing. And in that quiet moment, Tom realized something profound. Sometimes what made humans special was not the technology they built or the strength they showed, but the courage to protect others, to act without reason, and to trust in the bond between beings, even across the stars. Lyra leaned against the workbench, her silver eyes reflecting the faint lights of the workshop. She looked at Tom not as a stranger, but as someone who had chosen to stand by her, to fight for her, and to care for her without expectation. Tom felt a quiet pride, but more than that, he felt a deep connection. The question she had asked would stay with him forever, not because he could answer it, but because it reminded him of the moment he realized what it meant to be human. "I will keep you safe," he whispered softly, "no matter what comes next." Lyra nodded, understanding that words were not always needed. The bond they shared was clear. They had faced danger together, survived, and emerged stronger. As the night deepened, they remained in the workshop, side by side. Outside, the stars twinkled, quiet and distant, while inside, the glow of the crystal device pulsed gently. They had survived the storm, faced shadows in the sky, and discovered something neither had expected: trust, courage, and the unspoken strength of the human heart. And in that moment, Tom understood fully why he had acted. There was no simple answer, no reason that could satisfy a translator or logic. It was something deeper, something that made humans extraordinary. They were willing to act, to risk everything for another being. And that choice, that courage, had saved them both.